am I trying to hold this pillow?
You need something to cuddle
I
on,
feel like
bro.
I need something to hold all the time. So, no, I'm gonna be editing the next podcast or the last podcast, and I'm gonna fucking text you out of nowhere on Discord and be like, "What the fuck are you talking about in this part?" You're like, "Yeah,
No, you'll understand. I know you'll understand. You're gonna hear it. And you're gonna be
Don't
like, "That's so fucking true."
Don't write me off
That's
before
so
I know it.
true.
That's like the high five thing you did yesterday, where you're like putting up your high five, and you're like, then you high five him, and he goes, "Yeah, Hitler," and you're all like, "Great, I just high fived to Hitler." But in hindsight,
I think that's something I started doing when I was like a little fucking kid. Like I would just like high five somebody and say something fucked up. Well, I say little kid, I mean like 13, but you know.
that's little to me.
All right, determinism. We have skirted around the meat of this conversation for a long time.
Yeah, because Aaron's a big determinist. He is
Don't body
a
shame
big
me.
determinist. Okay, whatever. Butt crack boy.
Yeah. Well, I've never denied it. I might have the world's longest butt crack.
Yeah, let's talk about fucking long bottom over here.
like it skirts the nape of my neck.
Oh God! So when he wipes, he has to like go all the way back. He gets like
I start from my neck and go down.
it's like a back scratcher, but with like a toilet roll on it.
Yeah.
But he's a determinist man, and I am a free will man. But I do see where he's getting at. We'll get into the meat of that shit. This is going to be a philosophical conversation. So if you don't like that shit, you better like and subscribe and hit that bell for more philosophical.
Hit the bell for more shit that you don't want to listen to.
But at least come to the video and like it before you leave. We like the support.
Yeah, just call us nerds in the comments and move on with your day.
Yeah, I feel like I keep seeing that there's one comment in the comment section that I can't see. So someone's posting stuff I can't see.
Does it say like comments 1 and there's nothing there?
Yeah. And you're like, what is it? What's the comment? I want to know what it is. And it doesn't say what it is. But yeah, I'm a big free will guy. Mostly because I just like the idea of people having some form of choice, whether or not you believe the origins of that choice is like completely free or unattached to anything. I'm not saying it's unattached to anything. I'm saying free will is important so people could have choice to do things. If you like tied somebody up completely, threw them in a room, they now have like almost no free will. They have like personal free will where they could like spit on the ground if they wanted to, blink 16 times in a row if they wanted to, do a 360, but they're heavily limited. That's what I really mean about free will in terms of like what you do. And like I brought myself a water, but I gave you a water. But like it was still my choice to give you a water, although like empathy tracing back was derived on other things or whatever, and my choice to be selfless is, but I also didn't make the decision to go all the way back and give you a water because I know you a little bit better, and I'm like, he doesn't really care. Do you want this water? And you're like, yeah, I'll take this water. So, and then you taking the water is a little more deterministic. All right, we'll just get into the nuts and bolts, but that's kind of where my stance is on free will in terms of like what free will means.
So your free will is someone's autonomy to like to choose their path moving forward through time, pretty much, like like you don't want to, or you don't. Well, okay, we're not talking about like prescriptive things. We're talking about normative things. Or wait, we're not talking about descriptive things. We're talking about normative things.
These pants are tight.
Okay, so trying to understand what your description of free will is. So your description of free will is that it is every person's ability to choose between options presented to them.
Yeah, or even
right.
For subconscious choices, like subconscious options.
Bro, those shorts look so like little boy shorts.
They're little, right? They're small.
Yes, you're such a small human, like like skinny wise. Those look like you.
These are the gray ones. The gray ones are
those look like a Boy Scout outfit shorts.
Shut up.
So, okay.
I think these are from like Abercrombie or something.
I'm
Back
trying
from
to-
like 2014 or something. I still just have them.
I'm trying to find here where your system and my system clash, right?
Well, let's before I guess let's. So I preface the definition of free will. Preface the definition of determinism.
So
as a determinist.
What I believe as a determinist is that from the beginning of the Big Bang, everything that has happened has been everything is a variable. That variable affects the next thing that's going to happen with that down the line. So like a good analogy would be if you were to stand at the top of a mountain and drop like a rock down it. If you were able to like have access to every single variable, you could accurately like predict exactly the path it's going to take with every variable that is there. So taking in like air pressure, wind, like the density of the rocks, like the force at which the rock you're dropping is hitting other rocks, like how far that's going to go, the next rock, like it would be insane to plot all that stuff out.
Yeah,
but I think
impossible, but with science, yeah.
But I think the same way with people, if we had access to all those, like all that data on somebody, all the variables leading up to a certain point, you could accurately predict the next move they're going to make, based on all that. There's a like kind of I think I don't know how to describe this part. So I think there are lesser forms of that happen in society, like when we behavioral psychologists, right? Like people who do like the fucking what's that one show, dude? There's a show that's going through my mind. It's where they Criminal Minds.
Okay.
Criminal Minds, right?
That one guy?
People are able to see something that is done and like accurately like go back and be like, okay, well, I think this is probably a fact, or this group of factors here have led up to this kind of act.
So
you
in the same way that you're predicting the actions in the future through the actions of the past, it's like the same thing where it's like a series of steps, like a staircase
that would accurately give you a basis to predict what is going to happen next. So it's not that,
or where that person is. So like if someone did something, like if I slapped Aaron because I was all upset about him cheating on his girlfriend, which he didn't do, but like there's all these little things on both sides, both me and him and potentially his girlfriend, all these like little individual actions that led to that that specific situation.
Yeah.
And like you could argue like, okay, so he was determined to do that because of all of these things that have happened in the past to him, in his life, their friendship, their interactions, the things that have led up between the two of like him and his girlfriend and myself, and then like all the way up until that slap.
It's like an impossible amount of variables, so it seems kind of weird. Free will is a much easier thing to grapple with because you're like, you have these choices in front of you, choose. Like, this is somebody's choice. That's your free will. I think that somebody has all these options in front of you, and when you choose, it is you should be able to, if you had like an impossible quantum computer with the millions of minds processing shit that you needed to do so, that could accurately like take all the variables and spit it out, you would be able to pick what choice that person is going to make based on all the variables in their life. It's something that in practice we can't really do, but it seems to be that is the case for me. You can kind of trace stuff in an accurate pattern. And moreover, if you were to take somebody, and I think me and Ronnie might have had this conversation on the podcast before, but if you were to take somebody up to a certain point in their life, so say I go out and I buy a red car today, you could turn back time, not giving me the variables, right? Not knowing that I turned back time. Just literally hit reverse on the or rewind on the VHS tape, bringing you back a little bit, and then press play, and it would play out the exact same every single time, just like the VHS tape. Now, if you were to, like, in the context of that movie, like, it had like a fake reverse or rewind on the VHS tape, and it like played like it was reversing it, and then the person was like, "Oh shit, we just got like turned back in time and all that, you know, from what just happened. All right, well, I'm going to go forward and like do something else today." That makes sense to me. You still have the variables of what happened in the future, and you're aware of them in the past because that already kind of played out, and that would change what happens going forward.
For sure. Okay, I get what you mean.
But I think that as a determinist, when you come to a choice, you're not looking at the choice and weighing all the options equally. I think all the variables that have led you up to that point in your life are going to influence you to make a certain choice. In that certain choice you would make every single time if you were to turn back the time 5 minutes and make that choice again, without knowledge that you have turned back time or knowledge of what that choice brings, and that stuff. Because obviously, well, not obviously, but like if you turn back time and you're aware of it, that's just a continuation of your own like memories and stuff, which is extra variables being added on, which is going to change the outcome.
Like if you sat backseat to like your past self, it would just play out exactly the way it did.
Yeah.
Until before you went in the past. And then you'd be like right back where you were.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, I think the only thing that needs to be set clear with determinism that may not be fully explained here yet is that like if you look at anything, any situation, there is a clear series of events that have led to this event.
Yeah.
And that should be obvious to everybody that absolutely is the case. But I think it's hard to digest because I think determinism sometimes seems like it wants to steal away a sense of free will or choice. Yeah. This is often spoken in like philosophical classes. I've had a full class where we argue free will from start to finish. It was kind of annoying. Not because I can't have that conversation, but because it's like what we kept talking about. And my teacher was probably a determinist and was really big on like certain philosophers who were like, you don't have any choice. It's all this and that. But it's fine. You're right. Like you are right that like things lead up to other things for sure. Like, you know, like, I fucking had to take a dump today. Well, there's a reason when you got to take a dump. You ate this, you ate that. I had Whataburger for breakfast.
And there's a reason you're choosing the time that you're taking a dump too.
Yeah, I always poop at 11. Like I always poop at 11, but I always eat right when I wake up. So like, but that happens because my stepmom, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, I didn't used to live with my dad, and I don't live with my dad anymore. Hardly talk to him. But when I used to live with my dad in high school, from like freshman year all the way through senior year, every day I would wake up to go to the bus or get in my car or whatever. My stepmom either made breakfast or had breakfast ready or had something for me to eat. Like she would put out like little cereal bowls or whatever, which is very nice. She's a great lady. But when she did that, she demanded that when I woke up, as soon as I woke up, I would eat breakfast, no matter what. But what that also did was that every day in my first period, I had to take a shit, bro. I had to take a shit every single first period because I just ate. And I like, as soon as it's fully done processing in my body's still done with all the shit from yesterday that I ate. Not actual shit, but, you know, food I ate from yesterday, carrying over while I'm sleeping. So it's in reserve. And then I eat immediately, which is like pushing out what I already had. So now it's like, I'm totally full, bro. I got to poop. And then I would poop at like 11 or like 11:30 or whatever during like first period or second period. So that's like really like the reason, not only that I poop at like 11, but why I poop or why I eat breakfast like now. Now in my 27-year-old life almost, I eat as soon as I wake up. And I also wake up like super early every day super early. I wake up at like 8:30 or 9 every day. But that's because I had work where I always had to get up at that time. So my body's like on like an autopilot basically. And so I'm like getting up at that time all of the time. These are the variables that lead me to these situations. And everything can be explained when looking backwards. Correct? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's determinism in that sense, but also it's like predictable in the future because of all the events that have led to these things.
Yeah.
If you had like math or a computer or, you know, all these different variables like a god would, then you would be able to predict exactly what's going to happen in the future too, based on all these different variables of like a person, a place, nature, things like that. Just like you can predict,
it would be like a domino effect of variables. Like if you're accurately able to figure out what variables lead to what, that next variable you're able to predict, and that next variable you're able to predict past that, you're able to predict past that. Granted, you're able to accurately predict those using those variables. It would,
Right.
like, it's incredibly hard to grapple with. It doesn't seem very realistic to be able to do that. But that's the way I feel it plays out. Looking so up to the point of somebody making a decision. So we can shrink this down into the portion of like, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go out and get something to eat, because there's a lot of options you have that you can go out and get something to eat.
but I know I'm gonna pick between Qdoba, Panda, Chicken Express, and nope, that's probably it in there. An immediate area. If I'm really hungry, that's the closest to me, and those are my favorite restaurants nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of thinking about those three things in my head, and I'm like, what sounds the most delicious right now? And that would also be determined on how much water I've had today, how much sugar I've had today, how much chicken
You might not
how much
want
meat
something
I've.
incredibly salty.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, and all those things are going to play into those variables.
So my question for you
To
is
choose.
then, what is in this situation? What do you describe is the free will?
The the freedom to go out and go get food.
So
Like
what
the freedom to choose what I want, because what I want is like I wouldn't necessarily skew, because I still want those things, but like I want them for maybe different scientific reasons, more down on like a molecular level, where like, yeah, like we just said, like I think I maybe had too much sodium for the day, so I may not want Whataburger or something like that, you know, or I had Mexican
be
food
feeling
last
something.
night, so I may not want Qdoba today. I might legit want Qdoba because it's always good, but like I know there's a lot of cheese in Qdoba when I get those quesadillas and stuff. So
And you might want something that's more nutrient dense because you're feeling like
but
a
I
little
still
weak or
want
something.
the ability to choose that I want that.
So
you know?
So I think we just had this conversation in the car too. So what your idea of free will is the autonomy of granted to you by living in a society that allows you to have autonomy, or
yes, absolutely. And if you don't have like the ability to like go out and do stuff, then you don't have free will, you know, whereas like, you know, if you were dictated to only have like porridge every day for like your meals, then you're like limited there. You're limited in terms of what you can eat. Like,
okay, what about
you want to live life with less limitations?
What about this? And I've heard this example given for this argument. So you would be
like, okay, so can we go back real quick?
Sure.
If there wasn't a Panda Express, but I wanted Panda Express, I might legit go out of my way, but I may not. It would depend on like proximity and stuff. So that's still like a deterministic thing, where it's like, oh, if the proximity of something is too far, you know, I don't want to drive that. I don't have enough gas in my tank, or I don't want to spend the money or the time to go do it because I am really hungry.
Yeah.
All those things are going to skew my idea. But I want a Panda Express nearby, so it would be badass if there was a Panda Express like being built on, like, you know, in the area where I want to have food. Then you want to make that choice. When that choice is available, I want to be able to make that choice.
Okay, so then this becomes a different conversation, because it seems so. Specifically, when I view determinism versus free will, it's the argument that people are granted free will by something, and you can't accurately you can't put a pattern on what anybody is doing. It's a descriptive framework rather than
they think of it more of like as a religious thing, where it's like bestowed.
Yeah, it's the difference between a normative statement and a descriptive statement. So a descriptive statement is what things are, and a normative is what things should be. So what your idea of free will, and I would agree to some extent, and I'll give you pushback here in a bit, and we'll explore it. But what you're saying is what should be normative is free will. People should be granted the autonomy to have these choices and stuff. And it is better when somebody has more autonomy than when they are when their autonomy is restricted, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I would you'd have to give me a pretty specific situation where that wasn't the case, because I think it could happen. You could definitely be in a case where like too many choices is problematic. Like going down the chip aisle is fucking useless. There's like 1,000 different chips. There's just too many.
There is a phenomena where people
that's the best example. Chip aisle, bro.
When people are given too many examples, they will sometimes opt out of choosing because they don't want the pressure of having that autonomy like given to them.
I mean, I would try every chip if I had the.
Yeah,
like, if I could get one free a piece.
They're unable to grapple with that kind of autonomy because it's too much, too fast. Like, a lot of people don't like open world games because of that. It's too much autonomy, not enough, like...
That seems a little weird.
Yeah, I kind of love
that.
I love open world games. But, you know, some people...
It's the problem with an open world game isn't that it's open world. It's that there's not any real substance within the open world.
Skyrim. Skyrim has tons.
Skyrim's the
Skyrim
example
is
of
the best example.
You could do whatever you want. There's so much shit to do. Anywhere you go, you'll find something. There's things to do. There are games like Assassin's Creed that's like a pseudo open world where it's a lot of buildings but nothing's in them.
Yeah,
Grand Theft Auto, older ones, pseudo open world. There's all these things you can go to but not a lot to do. The new Cyberpunk is not really as open world as you kind of hoped it would be.
That one's a big old flop, huh?
Yeah, you wanted multiple floors where you can go, because they said it was more condensed and you can go to multiple floors and there's things to do on each floor. That would be awesome, but that wasn't the case, and it was mostly like sex workers and shit like that. It's not really open world. So even The Witcher was like great like that, but there was a lot of like there's like fields and trees and shit. There's not a lot to do in those open areas. So there's animals to fight, I guess.
One example that I have, this isn't an original example, this is one I've heard, is so, and just to preface this, you would, if somebody were to say, all right, you have these three choices, we're going to take away your autonomy to choose, we're going to give you this choice. That would be, you would say, a bad, right? That would be probably an immoral thing.
Yeah, I think that would be problematic. Yeah.
But in the instance, somebody says, all right, we have three houses. There's this old ramshackle one. Doesn't have very good electricity. There's this kind of small one. It's kind of cramped. It has electricity, whatever, it's whatever. And there's this fucking mansion with everything decked out. But we're taking away your ability to choose. You can't choose option 1 or 2. You have to live in the mansion. You wouldn't, would you think that was immoral?
I would think, one, I would be suspicious. Be like, why?
Okay, this is like a government mandated thing. We'll take away
like they
all
give
like
you a
weird
nice
things.
house and they don't want you to live in a bad house. I think in that scenario, I mean, it seems kind of obvious and like a little baity, but yeah, I mean, it seems.
But would you say it's immoral like the other ways?
No, because like that sounds like you want what's best for them, and
we're not going to assign any kind of like weird things to this. This is going to be is like a government guy comes by and he's like, all right, well, these are the choices you have for food. We're choosing this one. Like it's just an arbitrary choice.
Yeah, and I guess part of it isn't.
Don't dig too deep into it.
Well,
be very clinical with it.
No. I'm trying to be. My thing is that like you're not. So my big thing on free will is that you're not hurting anybody. You're not hurting them by giving them like, oh yeah, you could have this shack that has nothing in it and no electricity. I think most people wouldn't pick that in almost any scenario when compared to something else. But from nothing, and then only being like, hey, I have something for you. It's this shitty shack which you can live in. I don't have any other options. Like you could choose between living in your current state or living there. Someone might pick that. But like when you consider that like there don't appear to be any negatives attached to having the mansion house or anything like, like there's a right, even just consider this house.
Yeah, you don't have to like pay extra taxes on it, so they're not trying to trap you into that.
Yeah, like if there weren't anything, that's why I said it was suspicious. But like if there was something attached to it where it's like you have to pay more taxes or whatever. But let's say, for instance, they're giving you this. They're just giving you this house. It's not even really a car. If you consider a car, there's more variables there because a house is like AC, shelter, water and plumbing, right? Those are big things. And those things are in any functional house. They're not giving you really a functional house in the first two options. Really, I gotta sneeze. Okay, so when it comes to a car, if you did the same thing with a car, and you said like this first one is a 95 Civic, the second one is a Kia Optima 2019, my car, and if you go with the last one, which is like a Tesla Model S, and I said I'm giving you the Tesla, there's a little more to talk about here.
Yeah, because of maintenance and stuff, like the accessibility of repairing a car.
Exactly. This is my part of the argument. Me personally, I want the fucking Model S. I'm not going to argue that at all, bro. I want that fucking Model S. I've been wanting a Tesla since I was a kid, or since I was in high school. But
since they came out,
somebody might want the Honda 94 or 95, whatever I said, because you're going to be able to like fucking soup that shit up to have like this and that and whatever, right? That's not really the argument with the houses.
No, yeah, because with the cars, it's a matter of like the line where it's subjective, where it's actually a subjective choice, is much what would it be, smaller or larger? It's essentially, with the cars, you could have any of those and be great. They're going to come with their own sets of problems and whatever, but they're all better than not having a car.
And I think,
and you could have a preference for cars.
Yeah.
But nobody has a preference for like a fucking falling apart house.
Yeah, exactly. Because like you look at the house and you're like, objectively, this is better than any of the other options, and they're giving it to me as not an option. You might wonder, but you won't regret getting the badass house, but you fucking will regret getting the shack. I think in every
out of those
scenario.
Three. So if they said you're taking the shack, you'd be like, "Fuck you! This isn't right. This isn't right for you to take this choice away." But nobody would ever say, if you're getting the mansion, no, I want the right to choose. You can't tell me which one I'm going to take. I want to choose.
Yeah.
Because normally people just wouldn't care, because that would be the obvious choice anyways.
Yeah.
So do you think in that case that you care less about, or given that kind of argument, do you think you care as much about free will as you do about lessening the harm to everybody, like having people go through less like suffering and having to deal with less adversity in their life?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we were talking about, like antinatalism, where it's like you want less suffering. For me,
yeah, they're like kooky mad scientists, though. They're kooky mad scientist edgelords of the fucking philosophical community.
I would say in this scenario, the important thing is less suffering. But so consider it this way. Mm-hmm. You know what an NGO is?
No.
Or a GNO, a government nominated organization?
No.
So a GNO is like TOMS, like the shoes. Mm-hmm. Or like Habitat for Humanity, or something like
what is
Save the Children, or whatever. The function is that they provide a substance or a source, a facility for people.
like the government subsidizes it.
Like, I'm gonna give you rice forever, and we donate rice. You guys are getting food and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Generally speaking, a GNO sounds like it's a good thing, right? Would you argue that, like, if I gave someone who is poor food, that's a bad thing?
Yeah.
Like, most people would probably consider no. You're, like, looking at, and you said no. But, like, if...
I was just expressing that I was understanding what you're saying.
Right. So...
Yeah, they shouldn't be giving people rice. Fuck those people, bro.
So... You give a homeless man a burger, and he's sitting on the side, and he goes, thank you so much, God bless, blah, blah, blah. I've heard that a lot. So you hear something like that, right?
Yeah.
But let's argue something real quick. A GNO is providing substance to somebody without them getting the sources themselves. So initially it sounds pretty cool. You're giving free food, free, trade. You give them not trade, you're giving them free like clothing and shoes and things like that, and food. Okay, so if you look at like a GNO controlled area, let's say it's in Africa, and you're like, okay, so somewhere in Africa, really a bunch of poor people in a specific area off the coast, the coastline, the harbor is full of GNOs. People bringing in rice and, and meat and things like that to the GNO inhabited area where there's like clothing and blah, 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 and they're providing them all this shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens to that society then? They're dependent, right? They're dependent not only on that, but they are now like all of their free market is gone. So they don't have trade. They have nothing to trade because there's no reason to trade for anything. They have no reason to build individual income because no one's gonna buy anything when they get free shit, right? They get free food, they get free clothing, and blah blah blah. There's no need for independent, like fun things like soda and like vitamin water type stuff that they're gonna make for themselves to provide to the community because it's being provided for free already. So they kind of stay in a complacent space where they're like, well, I can't move anywhere. I can't do anything because I can't make food because they're providing us food. And like, we're not getting any money because we have nothing to trade. We have nothing to give. We have nothing to give to other communities or anything because everything is being provided from us. So in the scenario where something is being given and it sounds like a good thing, like a house or whatever, sometimes that could be a bad thing because in that sense, that community is now eating rice for almost every meal, and then that they have no trade, so they don't make new things. They make lame shit like fucking bracelets that sell for like 3 pennies or whatever. Whereas before, if we didn't interject with the GNOs, they could have made a community for themselves. Or we could have given a little bit of GNO, but instead what we're doing is that we're like inhabiting an area and we think that we're doing a really good thing, but really what we're creating is an economic problem.
So this is what you're essentially laying out. This is a situation where attempting to alleviate the suffering as much as possible is impeding on autonomy.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So sometimes I will agree with you, but because I'm really gray on everything, but like I think sometimes it is good to relieve suffering. In the scenario with the house, absolutely, bro, I would take a free house right now for sure. I would take the Model S that I was talking about earlier. That would be the shit. But realistically, dude, like the relieving suffering could inhibit on autonomy and free will. So it could be problematic. So yeah, I mean, I think in the house scenario, I agree with you. Let's take the big fucking house. I mean, it would depend on taxes and housing area and things like that. That would also kind of come into effect, I guess. But when you compare it to not having a home and stuff and living in the street or whatever, and they were just giving it to you for free, that's pretty awesome. You're definitely going to take that, and they're doing the good thing for you, I guess, in that scenario.
Yeah, well, yeah, you could describe that to them, but this is a government thing, so they're just like, checking you off a list, like, that's just their duty in that hypothetical. But
yeah.
So then I guess we should circle back to what do you think? So you said that you in class and stuff, you would argue there would be people arguing for and against free will, right? So what are the parameters of that argument for you? Like how did that usually play out? Because it sounds like what we've come to is we both agree on the normative determinism, right? Or not normative. Sorry, we both agree on the descriptive of determinism. That is how the world kind of plays out, and the normative thing that you should have a healthy balance of alleviating suffering and allowing people choice, so autonomy to make decisions, which I would argue is going to be a determinist. You're just adding values for people to vary their choices. It would still be predictable to a degree, but we should allow those choices. We separate what is and what ought to be.
Yeah.
So in your discussions in school about free will, what were the arguments for and against? What were you guys talking about?
Basically determinism. I don't think he ever actually used the word determinism. It was just basically philosophers who had believed that like no choice is like organic, like there's no. Remember you said something about like the dragon gauntlet, and it was like the Thanos gauntlet should be like dragon scales, and it wasn't. I mean, it was it was like an idea you thought of at the time, but realistically,
Yeah,
has already
no
been
idea
done.
is original.
No idea is original. Everything is connected in the sense that like this has been done before, or like you've seen this somewhere, like at some point, or you've had some experience that connected like the little strings together to point you into where you're doing or like acting now. Pretty deterministic. I think the only thing that might have been different was some form of metaphysical aspect of it, where it's like maybe you're linked.
Yeah, it's so usually I think with the metaphysical part, it's either the like what you always said, where you would say predeterminism, where it's like it was decided that this is the way this is going to happen, and we can't deviate from it. Like you know, operating within that, even thinking about deviating from it is part of the plan. You know, like that it's decided from start to finish by a metaphysical entity or whatever, like a god. And then free will being having a metaphysical aspect where you're either a god has given you the ability to choose between things free of any kind of influence, which sounds, I don't know if people could actually argue for that, because there in no world am I walking out of the house and getting in your car because, you know, I just decide to. Like, firstly, I don't have keys.
It could be
like,
pretty chaotic.
But
it's possible. You still could do those things.
Yeah,
it's a matter of like,
but
you just never would.
But that would be so in a free will world that like you were given the autonomy to choose between all these things equally. You could never tell me no if you believed in that, because I was just making a choice. It's not, that doesn't come back to me morally that I made a choice. Right. So like I could go out in your car and drive off with it.
Yeah.
But there are tons of variables. There are morals. There's like all these things pointing to me not, or like keeping me from doing that, because it's not an optimal choice. Usually I think people make optimal choices, or what they believe
the
are
most efficient choice.
What they believe are the most efficient choice.
Definitely.
And that would just in almost no equation would that be like an optimal choice to do.
Right. So
determinism has not led me up to that point. Like I haven't had like a history of like, well, I have had a history of like shoplifting and stuff, but that was like a stupid kid. But like I haven't like had a history of like being able to take people's cars, being able to just drop a friendship because I wanted to take someone's car. Like none of that, like none of that equation balances out for me and how I autonomously decide to choose my life, I guess. So all options are not equal, like how free will in like a metaphysical sense would give you, or like not even just your God, but your consciousness allows you to choose, you know, whatever, like keeps you free of like outside influence when you're making a choice.
Right.
I find that really hard argument to like grapple with, because it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because you can always ask somebody, "Oh, why'd you do this?" And they'd be like, "Because of free will." Like, why'd you go get McDonald's? Because of free will. It's like, no, that's like the closest place. You love fucking McDonald's. You go to McDonald's all the time.
Like, it's kind of like
your salt content's low today.
The determinist in me, I want to move my position. The determinist in me comes out when I hear someone say, "Yeah, I don't know why I like that, but I
down there too, bro.
I don't know why I like that, but I do." And I'm like, "Shut the fuck up. You absolutely know why you like that. Are you fucking kidding me? Why did you say that?" Like, "Oh, I don't know why I like I don't know why I like the way that looks." I'm like, "Because you like your favorite color is blue. There's like so many little variables. Of course you fucking know why you like that." That's like one of the most frustrating things, like especially like as an artist, and I hear someone in the middle of a critique go, "I don't know why I like this," and then even worse, but they
explain why.
They explain why. You fucking goon. What's wrong with you? You don't know why? You just explained why.
It feels like it's hard to like, that might be just like a turn of phrase that is it's one of those things. It's a turn of phrase that allows you to explain that you don't want to explain why. But then it's like the same thing as like when they start explaining it afterwards, it's like, okay, so you didn't mean what you just said. You know what? it like I did this to you in the car earlier too. But when you were talking about going to a concert, and I was like, I've never been to a concert, and you'd be like, you've never been to a concert?
Yeah, it's like a reaction.
That,
Yeah.
That kind. It's a turn of
But I
phrase.
really didn't
understand.
hear you. I thought you said I've been to one or something, and so that's why I turned the music down too. And I was like, wait, you've never been to a concert?
But yeah, it's like kind of like a colloquialism kind of thing that people do. You reiterate it to be like, wow, that's crazy. Like I don't remember what those are called. Like saying wow or like, that stuff.
Like an exclamation.
So I understand it. I find it like weird. So I'll like make fun of people who do it. And I think that might be the same as like somebody who's like, I don't know why this makes me feel this way. Maybe it's because of this and this and this and this. It's like, why did you even fucking say the first part, you idiot? Just say just give the rest of it.
Dude, the worst shit ever is when someone goes, huh? Oh, yeah, I went out last Thursday. I'm like, why did you say huh? Because you heard me. You heard me. But you responded with what? And then you replied. You fucking heard me. What'd you say what for? And then you replied anyways. So you definitely heard me. Is your brain creating a gap so it has more time to think? That's the strangest shit.
It actually, that is a thing that happens. Like when people say, like what I just did here, when you say or right or like or any of that stuff, it's like a way to continue let people know that you're continuing a thought process, that you haven't stopped, but you're you're aware that your time is continuing to go and you're buying yourself time. But it's nobody fucking says that out loud. Nobody's like,
give me a second.
Hey, hang on, I'm trying to buy some time here while I'm thinking of the next thing I'm gonna say. I gotta go take a shit. Like
yeah.
Like nobody does
that seemed weird. He bought time to leave.
Yeah.
I am buying time to tell you I have to go poop and I have to leave right now.
Yeah, that sounds like your mom.
Maybe. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I gotta go. I'm kind of late right now, and so I should be on my way there. It's like, go, dude, stop.
That's why during those times I just don't really say anything, and I'm just like waiting for her to come to her own conclusions. Like, aren't you supposed to be there at 6:00? It's 5:56. It's 8 minutes away. You're gonna be late.
So I guess coming back to it, what do you think? Well, I guess we kind of ironed it out.
All right, that's the end of that podcast.
The way things are is determinism. The way things ought to be is autonomous, with a healthy balance of mitigating suffering, which sometimes is allowing people autonomy, or at least the illusion of autonomy.
So now that we've ironed that out,
let's talk about buttholes.
That hurt. I was gonna ask you some determinist questions.
Sure, go.
So I was listening to
shoot me. I'm a determinist.
I was listening to Hamilton Morris talk about drugs, as he does.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to the prison system, when it comes to punishment, we kind of talked about this earlier.
You mean like last week in the last podcast?
Yeah, in last week's podcast, not the one from an hour ago. When it comes to some form of punishment, like going to, God damn, you drink water fast. It just goes right down.
Open up my throat, bro.
Yeah, that's how he gets the whole dick in there. My dick. You fucker! God damn it, he keeps making this face. So when you go to, like, let's say you're going to go to jail for a certain type of crime. Let's say it's a drug crime first.
Get it all out there, specifics.
Because if I said it was murder, we're going to be less likely to be empathetic. But let's say it's a drug crime.
I could be empathetic to murder.
So, I mean, I think we already had that conversation 2 podcasts ago. But let's say you're shooting up heroin, and then you get pulled, like a cop takes you to jail. Mm-hmm. How do you think a determinist should handle that situation?
So you're essentially laying out that because a determinist would say all the variables that lead up to inaction will determine what action you make or what choice you make, given the options. So then how is anything anybody's fault? How can you hold anybody morally culpable for any action they take if it's not their free will choosing it, right? So this person
yes.
does a bunch of heroin, breaks the law, gets caught, and how does a determinist support the decision to put that person through the legal system?
Yes.
Right?
Okay, if you need to, rewind it like 15 seconds and listen to him again. But yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You just said it real fast. I mean, I totally understood everything you said. I knew exactly what you were going to say.
Okay.
So,
because
that was determined.
How does a determinist reconcile this thing?
Yeah,
These two seemingly contradictory.
Yeah,
things?
Hamilton Morris kind of talked about it, so I was curious. He didn't really get into it, but he did.
I would
bring this
argue
up. Yeah.
that. So well, this is going to be like a personal thing. I don't believe in retributive. How do you fucking say that? Retributive justice.
Yeah.
So retribution-based justice. I don't think that because somebody did something bad, we should do something bad to them. I don't
like
think
an eye for an eye.
Yeah, I don't think that like punishment is a good concept. I don't think it's
iron
a
with
healthy thing.
iron, fire with fire. Yeah.
I think so the way I look at it, the way I reconcile this thing is this person we have a society, how we kind of, well, there's a lot of friction in this too, but we have this justice system where we have these rules in place for this is how we should act in society as to not cause harm to society or whatever. Highly flawed and everything, but we work with what we have. This person is doing drugs and they get caught within possession of drugs or whatever, allowing them to be tried under one of our, laws. The way I reconcile putting somebody into prison is if we catch this person, we find out, okay, all these variables have led you up to doing drugs, which is what we say is a no-no in society. You shouldn't be doing drugs because that leads to bad outcomes for everybody else in society. So we're going to put you into an institution that will kind of force the next the next set of variables in your life to kind of correct how everything is led up to this point. So when you come out, you'll have a whole new set of variables, or not a whole new set of variables, but we will have kind of handpicked the variables that will determine how you're going to act with society from here on out. So we've given you an education. We've made things more accessible for you. This is like the utopian shit. We don't do this in fucking America. We get revenge around here, okay?
You throw them into a building with a bunch of murderers and rapists, and then they're like, "Hey, I'm a drug addict. I had like 30 pounds of meth on me," and they're like, "Cool, I killed 6 people last week," and you're like, "Uh-oh."
Yeah. So in how things should work, and I think how they're supposed to work, but we don't have this conversation in society all that much, or not enough.
Most conversations are had in quick passes.
Yeah.
Especially like on news outlets and stuff. It's like a conversation with the vice president or the soon-to-be president is maybe only a few seconds and makes him look like an idiot.
Yep. So what I believe is a determinist should happen is we take this person, we try to add correcting variables going forward. We give them education. We give them on-the-job training for things. We keep them separated from society so they can't the choices, quote unquote choices that they're going to make, which they are going to make choices. I just think that it's deterministic which choices they're going to make. The choices that they're going to make can't directly affect society. So we have them isolated from society. Give them the variables that will lead to them making choices that are more in line with what we believe we should in society when they come out of that institution. So it's more of a correction rather than a retribution. There's no revenge there. Yeah. It's where this is a reducing suffering kind of argument. This is, we take away your autonomy for a little bit we take away your autonomy as an individual to try to correct things. So when you come out of, when we release your autonomy back to you, you're making choices that lead to less suffering for those around you and yourself.
That definitely sounds like...
Sounds pretty utopian, though.
It sounds like it. That's probably how it should be. That's about what I expected. Is like, because it's... But like... because it's not like, you know, in a deterministic way, it's like that wasn't really something like it. No one would choose to ruin their life in most scenarios. You just like,
Yeah.
you kind of like fall into this, and then like you maybe become addicted to something, and then you're bound by the addiction itself. So it kind of becomes like a rehab center for your decisions.
Yeah. And that's like a, well, it can be a rehab center for your other stuff too. But like, I mean, if we take, so I also believe that we should end the war on drugs, which means I don't think people should be put in prison for doing drugs.
Right. We've had this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. So firstly, I don't think that should be a crime in and of itself.
Well, I mean, it's pretty arbitrary, and a big reason why, and this is also coming from Hamilton Morris, a pharmacologist, is that when drugs are not understood, they are made illegal because there's not enough information on them, but you know that something bad has happened with them, so you make them illegal. Or bad is subjective, of course.
Yeah.
But bad is like marijuana being a tier 1 drug, which is fucking insane for so long. But also up there with heroin and meth. That's really some bullshit. And then recently they started putting oh my gosh, they started putting certain pharmacological drugs up in tier 1, whereas it's grouped with other like crazy things like meth and heroin, and
so like, are you talking about like hydrocodone and?
Yeah, but not specifically that, more like individual drugs. But these individual types of drugs that were helpful for depression, have been put into those categories because certain things have happened. But there
Like
wasn't enough
Zantac?
research. It starts with a B. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. But we're I don't know. It's not menzoberranzine because that's fucking menzobaranzone from fucking D&D. But it sounds really close to that. But I think it starts with a B. But there are drugs that are like that are really useful for certain things, but haven't been useful in other senses.
Yeah.
And big reasons like, what's that movie? Not Dazed and Confused, but the one where it's like the dude's face is like kind of melty on the cover of the movie, and he's like,
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yes. So like that, there's a guy.
Captain Jack Sparrow.
Oh, is he in that movie?
Yeah.
Okay. So I haven't seen it, but
That's why he's so fucked up in Pirates of the Caribbean, because he did all those drugs.
yeah, it's the same guy.
He just thinks he's a pirate.
Yeah, the old movies in modern times. He's actually in a car. He's like in a Cutlass Supreme, and he's driving around. So
Burrito Supreme.
yeah. Supreme. So there's
those drugs that are being labeled as tier 1.
Yeah. So sometimes
Is it tier 1 or schedule 1?
I think it's Schedule 1.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But there's like something like PCP isn't as crazy as they made it sound.
Yeah.
Whereas like that guy who like tore out his own eyes and stuff was actually not the whole story. That guy had been like kind of like a drug dealer, and he was dealing like weed and shit, and they were like, hey, he got planted by some cops, and some cops were like, hey, come get this, we want to buy cocaine, we want to buy weed from you, but we want to know you're legit, not a cop, so bring cocaine. I didn't know if that was coming up on the mic. So they said bring cocaine.
Yeah.
And so when he was like, I don't know about all that, he brought cocaine, and they fucking caught his ass. And they go, hey, he was going to go buy weed from the cops, but he didn't know they were cops. He was like a dude or whatever, and he goes, the cops said, which he didn't know were cops, said, bring cocaine so we know you're cool. He brings cocaine, but he never shows them the cocaine. Not even at all. They show him the weed, and the weed was like fucking grass clippings, and he goes, this weed doesn't look good. This looks like really low quality substance. I don't want any of it. I want no part of it. The deal's off. Thanks. And when he goes to leave, the cops nab him, frisk him down, and take cocaine off of him, and they say, well, you have cocaine.
Yeah, they had like quote unquote reasonable suspicion,
which they didn't, and he went to court. That court hearing, the guy won against the cops,
as he should have.
And yeah, that's justice. That is how it should have worked. because he said that that was entrapment, and he was like, "You guys told me to bring cocaine,
Yeah, it's pretty much like if he would
and
have.
I didn't offer it to you. I didn't even sell it to you. You tackled me and took the
Yeah.
cocaine off me."
If he would have showed up with cocaine and they presented that stuff and he was like, this weed looks a little weird, but here's the cocaine, then sure, yeah, you brought cocaine.
Yes.
But they don't know if he brought cocaine
and-
when they requested it.
Yeah.
So the reasonable
So,
suspicion is very shaky at best.
Yeah, so he won the court hearing. He goes home. This guy contacts him and says, "Hey man, I think you're gonna I feel really bad about what happened. I totally support you. That's great and all. I have a new drug for you if you want to try it. I'm just trying to, do a boy a solid." He didn't know this guy, and he was suspicious, but he took it, and it's like in a jar, right? He takes this jar, and in it, and he asked, he's like, "It's not like angel dust or anything, is it?" And he was like, no, man, it's just a new drug. It's the shit, blah, blah, blah. He takes it to his house, doesn't even take the drugs yet. The cops show up to raid his house. So he fucking takes this, and he knows that shit that guy gave him was a plant now. He takes the mason jar or whatever, opens it up, and eats everything in it. And this guy fucking loses his mind. So whereas we wrote that specific situation off to be like, oh, PCP is fucking terrible.
Yeah.
This one guy took a whole bunch of drugs and he fucking ripped his eyes out and blah, blah, blah. There's a reason. There's a deterministic reason why this happened.
Yeah.
And if we had seen those variables, that guy could have been rehabilitated immediately. But that guy didn't. And he's back in society and stuff now. But that guy didn't rip his eyes out. One, that story was exaggerated. He's blind, yeah. But like he still has his eyes. He just damaged his eyes because he fucking was like getting a little crazy. But he did take a bunch of PCP, and that's what that fucking guy gave him. But if we would have seen that more objectively, and it was portrayed objectively, then the criminal here would really be the cops in that scenario.
Yeah.
That they were baiting the fuck out of this guy. So, whereas if we would have seen those variables, we would have seen that was, something we could have more sympathy for, and that guy could have been pretty much immediately reset. Maybe he would have got rehabilitated from the poison, basically, but then like the cops had to go through some type of training or something, and basically maybe not be police anymore.
Yeah, the one drug that kind of makes me feel like while we should end the war on drugs, there should be some things that we need to like keep an eye on, or like bath salts. Because with bath salts, like much like you say with the PCP thing, like a lot of drugs get like overhyped and like exaggerated and stuff, like the effects of them, and like to the one case where somebody took like way too much, and they may have already had like some like stressors in their life and some mental deficiencies that led them to not be able to like grapple with the drug responsibly. Bath salt seems like, fuck, dude. I watched the video of the one dude who literally he took bath salts and took all of his clothes off and started walking down the street, and then he just attacked a homeless guy and like started eating his face. He killed him and he was eating his face. And there were some other stories that I heard, but these are just stories. They might be exaggerations as well. But I
was
haven't
about to say, I was like,
seen
I'd like to see like what led up to that, to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, they have he took some bath salts. He was driving. He got out of his car because I think his car ran out of gas or it overheated. He got out of his car and started walking. At some point, like, because they watched the video, they just like analyzed what he was doing. He was walking. He started walking under an overpass, and there was a homeless guy down there, and he just like stopped, look at the homeless guy. Or no, he didn't stop and look at the homeless guy. A guy was going by on the bike. There was somebody going by on a bike. The guy lunged at the dude on the bike, and then the guy on the bike like moved the fuck away and was like, "Oh shit!" The guy continued that assault over to the homeless guy and started like fucking like mangling him and eating his face and killed him.
Yeah.
And it's all on you. It's on camera. It's super zoomed out, so you can't like see it like all happening. But like he clearly attacks this guy, and he seems to he gets out of his car because of car problems, walks around and then attacks a dude.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because it was like way too much, or like it was in, I think it was in Miami, so it might have been like there was like some heat things like dehydration with it as well. But I'd be with some serious mind altering drugs that like affect you like that, like even with PCP, because you can abuse PCP, you can abuse a lot of drugs, and they can like have you do some fucked up shit. I think there should be ways that we can grapple with those without demonizing them wholly like we do in society. Just because somebody's going to do a little bit of PCP or acid or something doesn't mean they're going to turn into a fucking murderer. And I'm sure most of the time people do bath salts, they're not like eating babies.
Yeah, I mean, so that they call it microdosing. So when there's something like, when there's something like mushrooms, that's depending on the so psilocybin, you have mushrooms or something like that has a pretty strong psychedelic effect depending on how much you take, or something like, even surprisingly, even something like heroin can be microdosed. And it originally was used as a medical form. It does have some uses. Heroin can technically get some. You can technically get cocaine as a medical, like prescribed in certain states. I've seen it. You can not like in person, but I've seen that you can get that.
I've done it.
No, but you can get those just like you can get weed. But there's something called microdosing where you take it in small portions and it benefits you in the long run.
Yeah,
and
it's the heavy chemical imbalances you create. That
I mean,
create
like,
these
dude,
big
if you
issues
took like 6 ibuprofens, you're gonna be seeing little bunny rabbits running around your house. I remember my wife took 3 Midols when she was younger, and she had really bad periods before she was on birth control. And she had to take a lot of pain medication. So she took 3 Midols, and then I specifically remember her saying she saw like little bunny rabbits in her room. And she's like goofing off. Like, that's an over-the-counter drug. You can buy. I bought that at CVS without checking out with a person. I bought not Midol, but I bought like extreme pain medicine the other day because I get toothache sometimes. And
it just sounds like if self-service checkouts weren't as popular like as they were nowadays, it would have just sounded like you said you just stole it.
Yeah.
I went in and got some Midol and I didn't even see the cashier.
Oh yeah, right.
Like, sure, okay.
So I bought 30 tablets or whatever the fuck is in here of like extreme pain medicine, and I walked in, didn't even talk to the cashier, bought it at the self checkout and walked out. You could overdose on that shit and fucking die, dude. But like you understand microdosing. You take 2 tablets of this every 6 hours. Yeah, that's microdosing.
But if so, the I guess the moral of the story is that if the war on drugs was ended and we had like commercialized ways to deal these products out to people, we could give people like we could do a lot more studies on the stuff ethically.
Yes. And their studies are so fucking limited. Yeah. Because of laws. You can't tell them I want to study psilocybin mushrooms. And you have to have a reason why. You have to say,
and they have
because
to okay it for
we're testing PTSD. Then they'll do it.
Yeah, they've been doing that with ketamine and stuff too. I think recently has been a big thing.
Yes, I think you're right. But they have to have a fucking reason.
Yeah,
you can't just say we're testing it to test it. You have to have a connected reason.
Yeah. So firstly, end the war on drugs because we would be able to test these things
and cartels would be out of business basically.
Yeah, and we could gain other than that, that's part of another argument. So first is testing, being responsible with them. Then we can label the products in a way that lets people know how to responsibly use these things without demonizing the product and making them feel like they have to figure it out from fucking Slimy Joe in the back alley. He's got to tell you how many of these meth crystals to take and how many is too much, how much too little. When you're feeling this thing, you've gone too far. You can be more responsible because the tests have been done. The third one is it'll end a lot of suffering. So a lot of black people will not be going to jail for bullshit marijuana charges. That is like a huge overrepresentation in our prison system right now.
I mean, a lot of people in general. I mean, I don't know specifically who's going to jail for marijuana, but I knew a guy who went to jail for a fucking, like, the last little swig of a doobie. and he fucking hits that last little bit, and then the cop was like, come on. He had nothing left, and he had nothing on him either. It was just that little doobie, but they took him away. And that type of thing, man, that's some bullshit, because that as soon as it becomes not your, like, it's not affecting you directly, it's not your problem. Like, no, or not necessarily affecting you directly, it's not hurting anybody. So it kind of comes back to that argument where it's like, the overall well-being of humanity. If you're not hurting anybody by being, your sexual preference or
society
your drug use,
is malleable.
Look,
so there
if we
are
can
people
buy alcohol at the fucking store, which has killed more than 30,000 people in America alone a fucking year, then weed and other things should be regulated and made legal, because if you can put like a little stamp on something and you can get it, then you should be able to get it. And of course, if they prescribe heroin or something, it's not going to be for fucking everybody. It's not going to be for like your child who's going there for back pain.
Yeah.
Or a scoliosis or something. It's there for someone very specific, very niche. But what that does is that doesn't make it illegal anymore. And so if you really need it for some reason, you can go get it. But there's a bigger problem with something like hydrocodones and things like that. Those types of drugs, which are way more addictive, and way more people are addicted to it day to day. Like my own grandmother is like, seems to be really, really dependent on it and freaks out if she doesn't have it. Because like there is a huge dependency on it. So like, but those things are legal, but because it's something you don't fully understand, which you can't help to understand because you don't have tests for, because you don't fund the test, because
it's not a legal substance.
Yeah. And then you have to get permissions from a bunch of different places before you end up getting like the rights to do it at like fucking Baylor University or whatever. And then that person's studying it like under a controlled area. But what should happen is if you're going to make psilocybin mushrooms and things like that open to use, it should be therapeutic in that sense, because psilocybin is therapeutic.
Yeah, like there is a justification for it being on like a commercial market, but like the things like that would be like the same reason ibuprofen is on the commercial market. It's you don't have to get a prescription for regular like store acetaminophen or anything. Like you can just go get that stuff, because if you have a pain or if you're feeling some way that is not terribly serious, but is uncomfortable, and this product could help you, like a little bit of this product could help you, we give you the autonomy to like self-medicate a little bit in that way. You don't have to go to the doctor for like a headache because it's annoying you,
or cold,
and
or
then
whatever.
you have to
You can buy cold medicine, but they have to like
the Robitussin and like shit, like keep kids from robo-tripping. Sure, don't sell it to like you can put age limits on it.
There are age limits, and you have to be checked out by an actual person, and they have to see your ID and stuff.
Yep.
So like there's regulations there, but
and I think those can be okay.
Yeah.
Those regulations.
We're not freaking out about that. No one's having an argument about a fucking cough medicine. But no one's doing cough medicine. Maybe there's a fucking reason, because maybe now that it's like off the table and you're like, well, now it's on the table rather. One, more people don't want to do that.
It's like over the counter, quote unquote. So it's like.
I mean, there's
regulated over the counter.
There is no joy, trust me. There's no joy in drinking any amount of cough medicine. I don't care fucking what flavor it is. That is not good.
And I mean, if you make drugs that suck less than Robitussin legal, then they might just go do that instead. I would rather somebody like trip on a little bit of mushrooms on a fucking Friday night after they get off of work, when they're like, I got some mushrooms from the corner store.
People who are doing mushrooms typically aren't doing mushrooms fucking daily, and there's LSD in the Mind of the Universe, a decent book about a guy who does LSD every day for I think it's like it's something stupid like 72 days or something ridiculous. Yeah, that's not normal. People don't do fucking mushrooms every day. That's why he made a book about
into
it.
doing that. People
people
drink every day, but you like I would argue that drinking like the
and that
normal
destroys your liver. It's not like fucking mushrooms are ruining your fucking internals.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so if you live like a whole year like taking mushrooms every single day from start to finish, maybe like after you stop that next year, you're going to be like a little bit out of it. But I mean, I think it's something that you could come to terms with, and you could easily get out of if it didn't impair you.
And if you were doing something like that, you would likely be microdosing at that point. No one wants to have a full-blown mind trip every fucking night.
Not every night, but I want to have one. I want to have one ego death, man.
It would be nice to have one, but people who desire that want one. They do it
Yeah,
once,
'cause
once a year.
That
or
sounds
once
like it would be horrible
I
to
know.
continue doing.
I've heard it where it's like, oh, I've done DMT like 3 times my whole life. I'm 55 or whatever, and you're like, okay, well, how far apart were they? It was like 3 years, 5 years, and then 8 years apart. It was like, yeah, because no one wants to do those things all the time. You want to have some sense of it and then be done. If someone could talk you through a trip, like let's say there were qualified people like shamans who were in society, just like you can go to like a massage studio or whatever. You have a building where people come and they're like, hey, I want to trip balls. They wouldn't even say that. They go,
Yeah, you
I
could
want
have
to try
like a safe acid room or
Yes,
something
yes,
to
and
do this
someone
responsibly.
sits you down and they're calm and they're there. They're trained to help you, and then they're there and they help you through this little mind trip, and you go through a little spiritual experience, and then you leave and you go back home and you get Panda Express and shit.
And then we could tax it all and have more money for our society to run off of.
You
Get
could
that
tax
socialist utopia coming around the corner, boys. All it takes is the drugs being legalized. Hell yeah.
God, I gotta pee again.
Again?
Dude, I'm about to pee my pants. Fuck. I tried holding it as long as I could.
All right, so on the real, Ronnie's wrong about everything that he was talking about. I was just sitting here. I was just being nice to him, okay? He doesn't understand any of this determinism. He doesn't understand free will, okay? He doesn't get it. He does drugs all the time. The only reason he wants... I'm just agreeing with him to be a nice person, all right? The only reason he wants drugs legalized because he's, like, one of the biggest drug users I've ever seen in my life. This boy is over here, like, popping, like, meth and Skittles in the morning. He like cooking pizzas with the psilocybin mushrooms on them at night. He's dabbing. He's using those dabs of pure THC in his vape pen on breaks, like between working. I think he just went into the bathroom. Honestly, right now, I think he's in the bathroom shooting up heroin. I'm not sure now at this point. I can hear a lot of commotion coming from over there. I think it's all fake, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he's just full of shit. He doesn't understand what he's talking about. So, yeah, just be nice to him though. Oh, I hear him. Yeah, he's coming back. You gotta make it seem like it's normal. So, like, then the butthole is when you turn it inside out. What is called? It's called prolapse, right? So
what is happening here? I fucking come in here. Oh, prolapse butthole.
Well, it's talking about a new business idea that I had. So it would be called. So
this is so irrelevant.
Well, it's so okay. So it's listen here. It's a company that specializes in track and field equipment, and it's called Prolapse. I was just explaining the joke.
Is this an original joke?
I mean, I haven't heard about it from anybody else.
All right.
As far as I know, I came up with it.
I'm pretty impressed.
You know,
Prolapse.
No idea is original. So
what's the product?
Track and field equipment.
Oh, so it's not an actual.
Yeah, like hurdles and cones.
Okay.
Cleats.
That's
all
beautiful.
Right. Well, yeah. Where do we go with the conversation now?
Nowhere. We just end it. I'm done, man.
Okay, that's been putting in work here, bro.
It's funny that we got it all ironed out. It's like we got like all of the.
Yeah, I think
we got like all the stuff ironed out. You know.
The main point of like contention was, I think, a perceived like difference. So you from when I say I'm a determinist, sounds like that's how I think we should. That's how we should engage with the world. And when I hear you say, I believe in free will, I'm thinking that's how you describe the world. And I think that's we're like two ships passing in the philosophical night.
Yeah. No, like I think, there's probably crazier things I believe, but I don't think I'm smart enough to explain them. Not even that I'm smart enough.
Responsibly.
Yeah, like I think
like
I would
engage
try
with
to
it responsibly.
Yeah, I think even if I try to explain it, you'd ask questions and I don't necessarily have the answer to, but it makes sense to me.
Yeah. Like the what's the one with the word all in it that you are like? It's like when you're like one is all or something, or all is one.
All is one.
Yeah. The
like one is all. Like it's all connected.
Yeah.
Literally, like you are everything and everything is you.
Yeah, what do you call that?
The law of one?
The Law of One. There we go.
Oh, yeah, the Law of One. That's literally all that is.
That sounds kooky as shit, bro.
Love it. You got 5 books behind you. It's
Behind me?
yeah, 5 Law of One books right there.
Where?
On the but beneath the Power Ranger.
Down there?
Yeah.
Oh, the raw material? Oh.
It's the Law of One.
Carlos listened to that. I started listening to it at one point because you had brought it up, and I was like,
if you listen to the first book, it sounds super nutty.
yeah, well, I think that's what I was on. So
Kaylee read the first book, and you get through like all the preface stuff. That's why I just read the website. It's like the lawof1.info. It's like so much easier to go through because it's all in subject. So whatever you want to read about is in subject, or you can read it in part 1 to like so on. If you start on part 1 on the website, it's literally like just the raw material forward. But if you listen to the first book or you read the first book, most of it is preferencing the people and like their fucking day-to-day beliefs and stuff. And I don't necessarily care about all that because they talk about some kooky shit too. And I'm like, that's not what I'm concerned about. I'm in it for the philosophy. I'm not even necessarily in it for what it is as like a source material. I'm more concerned about like what all is being said as a philosophy.
Yeah, you're more concerned with the arguments they posit rather than like the why or how it relates to anybody in particular on an individual level. And
like, yeah, I mean, like at first sometimes they talk about UFO stuff and I'm like, that's great and all, but I don't really care about that. So I usually I skim over it, and I'm waiting for like the more philosophical questions, like, you know, like the positive mind, the negative mind, archetypes.
You tried to explain positive and negative mind at one point to me, and I think I need to sit down and like kind of like have it laid out to me and like see some pictures, like maybe like have like little diagrams. Yeah,
it just
like there's a lot of words, but you know, like you put that little diagram in there with the picture where it's like has the little label, like so over here it's like this is positive mind, and like this is what it means, like so see how this is moving in this direction, so like, and then the negative mind is like down here doing down here thing, and I'm like, I fucking got it, bro. So I'm just saying I'm kind of stupid sometimes.
So the cool thing about the raw material is that like on the website you can look up so it has links where like I have it, it's like hold on, it's on my phone, I'll show you. I have it like automatic to my, so it's like automatically pulled up. So here, where it's like browse by category, you could literally like look all through here and you could just click on stuff. So like, I'm always interested in reading like stuff I don't remember. I don't even click on like UFO, like next to never. I just think it's just a waste of time to speculate on that stuff. But there's like a negative path and then there's positive path. And you can read literally every single thing that's in that book that ever mentions positive path, even in context. And it's all sorted out. Like it's really, 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 really fucking sorted out by like a group of people who have fucking dedicated their lives to like fucking doing this.
I'd probably rather read what they're saying there than listen to one of them try to explain
I don't even, no. I don't
YouTube.
even fuck with people who try to do that because this book is one of those books that's like re-enlightening every time you read it. So there's some excellent fucking resources in the world, like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth is an excellent example about like it's literally just ancient old wisdom that is put onto these tablets, and they look fucking cool. And I've read these tablets; they are more enlightening the more you read them. I think the raw material is so much like that, even though you might discredit its source. Like what is being said, when you come back to that shit, sometimes you're like, oh my god, dude, like that's some shit to think about. And then you'll sit there and you'll think about it. Like, you know, disillusion into nothingness is disillusion into unity, for there is no such thing as nothingness. And at that time I heard that and I was like, I only heard the last part. And that's all I think about is like, there's no such thing as nothingness. And you're like, oh, that's nice. But then, like, the more you come to understand more things about, like, science, when you read, like, biocentrism and things like that, where you talk about light.
Which I'm going to read.
And, like, you learned a bunch of stuff about string theory and quantum theory and blah, blah, and, like, everything starts seeming like everything is light and everything is connected. And then, literally, like, space doesn't exist because it's, like, only a measurement into light. There is no space at all because it's already there. And that there's, like, no time, because time is only a thing that we use as a term of measurement for the distinction for things around us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then what the fuck is space-time? It's nothing. And so, like, but it is everything. And, like, there's, like, light is everything. And you are light. And you're composed of vibrations and little photons and blah, blah, blah. And, like, if you were to die and you dissipate, you are still those things. And that is what is comprising of you. How do you, like, your consciousness is what you're afraid of.
Well, we're made of atoms. We're not made of photons.
A bunch of shit. So, like, you know, there's all these things
No, I got you. I know.
that we're all connected on. And they're, like, you're all these things. So when you die, like, you are literally everything. And everything is you. That's that all is one is all type shit. So why should you be afraid of dissolving? Like, you are everything. And, like, there is no such thing. There's no nothingness. There is not nothingness. There's nothing in the universe that has ever suggested that there is nothing here. There is no absolute zero cold. There is no absolute fucking space of a vacuum. There is something. They have ripped apart, like, things down to, like, absolute, like, they have destroyed, like, things all the way. Oh, dude, there's so many fucking cool experiments. There's an experiment where they ripped apart a DNA and they froze it to death and killed it. And and they did this in 1930. They ripped apart this DNA. It completely got dismantled. And within 30 minutes, that bitch put itself back together. That bitch was like, whoop, and reformed back into DNA. And they were like, what the fuck is that? That's cool. You could look that shit up. And they did that shit like 100 times in a row. Same DNA. They were like, we're going to rip this bitch apart. And they kept freezing it to death. And they were like, they kept trying to kill it.
Well, DNA is not alive.
Whatever you want to call it. And it would completely dissipate.
They would pretty much destroy it.
Yes.
To a point, and then it would reform.
Yes. And they're like, and like they rip shit down to, like, you know, a bottle cap, and not specifically a bottle cap, but they rip a physical thing down into almost nothing, yet it still carries a weight. There is still, like, a weight to it. Like, what the fuck is that? It's not nothing. Like, nothing is still something. So whereas, like, that little bit, that phrase could be read and then overlooked, you might read that and go, oh, that's whatever. But the third time you read it and you come back and you've, like, listened to some other shit and you come back with some science on your ass, you're like, oh, wait a minute. This is, like, a little deeper than, it's not just this. It's more than that. And there's a lot in there that's like that. There's a lot of stuff where I think of all the time where I'm like, that's some law of one shit, dude. Or I'll read, like, you know, some shit that's in there and I'm like, I'm floored by it. You could discredit the source, but the material itself is really valuable in terms of, like, a philosophical perspective, which is why I like it a fucking lot. Yeah, it's the shit. Yeah. I mean, it if you read the first book, you have to go through, like, straight up, like, 60 pages of crap. And then the last book is material that was, like, taken out because a lot of times either it wasn't answered or it wasn't, or it was, like, a personal question. Whereas the second book is so good. And the third and the fourth are more about, like, how the universe works and kind of, like, more philosophical questions on, like, how to approach life, how to balance chakra, how to balance, not even necessarily, I don't even think they use the word chakra, but it's like how to balance the self and, you know, kind of move through life experiences and stuff and how to overcome, not overcoming, accepting, things like that. So it's way more philosophical. It's not a religion. It's not, like, things like that. So I get all excited about it, but I've read the book series like 5 times or something. It's pretty fucking ridiculous.
You know what turns me off of like some of this stuff is when you look into, or sorry, like I don't have an example offhand, but I feel like when I first looked at this, because you've mentioned the law of one. It was right before we started doing, like, or right when we were starting to do podcasts together. And I was like, okay, well, I'll look into this and I'll see if there's anything, like, either I'll think it's cool and we could talk about it, or, like, maybe I'll come at it with a different insight and ask him questions and clean some different kind of knowledge or see what he has to say about it. And I started listening to the Law of One stuff. I feel like when I started listening to that, like, part of the thing that turned me off of it right at the beginning was things like that, like, to posit things like they're true when it seems like it's something that is unfounded.
Yes.
Fuck. It's like when like, I guess this would be the best example, although this isn't the law of one at all. This is what somebody else had said. When I was looking at like a breakdown of a song, and somebody said like, somebody was breaking down the music video, and they said,
this is about that.
yeah, where they were like, I can specifically name drop it. So if you ever look up what the song meaning of My Name Is Human by Highly Suspect, there is one person in one of the breakdown like comment sections where they are like, all right, I'm going to go shot by shot of the music video itself. So nothing having to do with the song, but the music video.
Yeah.
And like one of the first shots is the guy going up and pulling a cloak off of this like figure. And the person said, the man walks over to at this timestamp, the man walks over to the figure and pulls off the black cloak. The black cloak represents evil, and the figure represents AI, because AI is inherently evil. And I was like, from that moment, I was like, I'm not gonna listen to anything you have to say past this point, because you just posited something with absolutely no kind of evidence or supporting anything, and that kind of thing will turn me off to something.
Yeah, the cool thing
hard.
The cool thing about Law of One is that there is no evil, there is no good, there is no
true.
Like,
sounds based.
There's no discussion of what is good and what is evil at all. Not a single time. There is a question of, is this good or evil? And there is no good or evil. There's no good inherent. There is no bad inherent. The term positive and negative is only what you might consider like a battery charge. And neither is bad.
Yeah, somebody from the outside could give that like somebody out from the outside could use those words like, oh, positive means good, negative means bad. But instead of like,
think of it like a battery.
Yeah, rather positive and negative
on each other.
Yeah, you can say like north and south or
yes. That's literally exactly. I mean, you understand that. So there is no talk of good or evil, who's right, who's wrong. None of those things are discussed at all, which is what I like about it. Because I am really gray on things, and I think it's fair to be open-minded on that stuff. So whereas the source might be a bit strange, and you will have to press through those things if you care, but for the most part, it's just there's no talk at all of like, follow this, don't be in this religion, be in the Law of One, which is not a religion.
Yeah, because there's none of like, this is good, this is bad, you should do this, you shouldn't do this.
Not at all. None of that is discussed at all, because it's just not. That's just not how it is.
So the Law of One is just a description of what is.
For the most part, anything that is
pretty descriptive then. Yeah.
Anything that is described is typically described, and now almost always is described as a fact, but you'll have to read it.
I have to read biocentrism first,
which is excellent.
I'm going to read biocentrism.
It's more exciting.
You know what?
The biggest thing, it's so exciting to learn science.
Now,
and it's not
now
even,
though,
I don't even necessarily care if it is a biocentric idea of the universe, because it's exciting to learn that this guy has like a theory on the universe and it makes sense. And you said something about the Big Bang earlier, but if you read biocentrism, you might change your mind on that.
Oh, I was just using that as an example, like from the beginning, like all variables lead up to whatever.
It is so exciting to learn the science of how photons work. That was like, I was like, oh my god, fucking photons are the shit. It wasn't necessarily like biocentrism's the shit, because I discovered how photons work within biocentrism. The way that photons work are not dependent on the theory of biocentrism. It just happens to be in a biocentrism book. And I was like, oh my god, photons are the fucking coolest thing ever. So
you know what? As I'm reading that book, though, now you have to go and read up on the ethics of biocentrism.
yeah. So we can balance each other out. So we can have a full discussion.
That one seems pretty cut and dry, though. It's like a edgy, like, or not edgy, but it's like, it sounds like what fucking like radical PETA people would do. Like, you know, everything in there is no such thing as morality, because there's no such thing as a morality that humans can debate. It's, you know, everything. Instead of morality coming from humans, morality comes from like the idea of nature, I guess. So like whatever nature does is inherently moral. And like, going against that is immoral. But, the counter to that, and I haven't seen anything otherwise, is just humans are also part of nature, so wouldn't anything humans do also be moral?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even when it comes to killing other creatures, like completely
because we are
genociding.
still an animal. We're
Yeah,
definitely still
like
animals.
we're part of nature. So like,
Yeah.
it's a fun debate is trying to talk to people about what is artificial, what is the difference between artificial and natural, and what is organic mean, if not like if not just whether something has like pesticides sprayed on it when it's growing.
I think that's why they developed that definition in terms of food, because organic would be anything that's created from the universe, right?
Yeah,
So then, like,
literally almost everything.
literally everything you experience is created by the universe. Because if we created it ourselves, we still are part of the universe, and it was created through us. So the argument should not almost be had at all, because it's like there's a definition of what organic is in terms of how.
But
it
what
makes
about
food.
artificial and natural?
I think it would just be, it's like more like a foreign object. It's like,
Okay, so then
like
glucose.
you don't have,
when a flower creates, or when any kind of fruit that uses, or not fruit, any kind of plant that uses what's it fucking called, photosynthesis, creates sugars, is that then artificial? No. Then when we make sugar that we would consider artificial, why is that not just a biological process that us as humans
you mean
have
like
access
a
to?
synthetic sugar? Is that you mean like we create it from like?
Yeah.
Like
Why is
lab,
that
you
not
mean?
why is that not natural and artificial?
I don't think it's. I think what the argument is that like
I think it's a big semantics debate.
kind of. So like the flower creates it organically. It creates it itself from itself, right? So and then we take it or whatever, right?
We're just replicating a process, though.
We're replicating a process in a lab. So it's like,
so if a flower creates sugars in a lab,
but the
is it
compounds
then artificial?
could be different too, because I know there's synthetic THC, and then there's like organic THC where you withdraw it, or not THC. There is
Oils, too.
but like like you pull it from like the actual source, and then the synthetic version have different outcomes completely, because they're once created in a lab from different materials. My thing would be like, if I put it in a food that didn't already have it, then you are implanting it, so then it wouldn't, doesn't naturally come with it. Like,
so then
like a GMO would be like, modified, right?
Well, everything would be a GMO nowadays.
I mean, that's why
Everything, even heirloom tomatoes aren't like the original tomatoes that we would have.
Yeah, tomatoes themselves were like never even look the way they do right now. I think like most tomato, like the red tomato that we are fully aware of, I don't even think looked anything like it used to.
What's interesting to me though is the kind of semantic debate on it, like how we interpret these things. So why did we come up? So why is it that? Well, I guess because we don't create. Well, I guess we technically would create some kind of like stuff in our body, like through other, like synthesizing other materials within a biological process, is what makes something artificial literally only that it's not a biological process, and it is a process outside of an organism that is creating that thing.
Yeah, maybe.
So then would pretty much all matter be not natural? Or do we describe, because it sounds like we're describing two different, like we're categorizing things as one of two things, but those two categories aren't even like eye level with each other. They're kind of a little bit different. You just looking up definitions or something?
Yeah, because I'm curious, like, because I don't want to have the conversation, and like synthetic, made by chemical synthesis, especially to imitate a natural product.
And what is a natural product?
So, existing or caused by nature, not made or caused by humankind.
Okay, so the only difference between a synthetic and a natural thing is
the hand of a human.
The hand of a human.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then when an ape creates a simple tool, like a primate creates a simple tool, is that then natural because of our definitions?
No, it would be synthetic because we like catalyzed it, right? So
Well, not a human, but like
like
any
an
of
ape, like
any
an
like
animal?
apes. Yeah,
Oh.
not a human. Well, I think actually, you know what?
I mean, I don't know, bro. If we're going all the
I
way back
think-
to the whole connected thing, I mean, they definitely are a part of us.
True.
Apes. I mean, look at our.
I think
look at
actually-
our fingers. We match the same fucking
Definitions have been
fingerprints.
expanding of humankind. I think of recently. I feel like I heard this somewhere. That definitions of humankind have been expanding recently to include more advanced kinds of primates and whatnot.
Yeah.
So maybe
because they're starting
we
to
could just
fashion tools and stuff.
we could
they think that
compl-
they're like moving into.
Oh, bro, it'd be so
that
sick to
period,
have like
I
another
forget what
kind
it's
of fucking
called.
intelligent being. Let's be racist towards monkeys, dude. You know, there's actually like whole communities online of people that hate like monkeys. Like they will watch videos of monkeys, and if a monkey gets hurt, they're like, "Ha, yeah, you fucking tree rats." Like there's
What?
people who watch videos of
I know
animals
people don't like
to
monkeys.
cheer
but
on monkeys getting hurt.
monkeys are great, dude. I feel so fucking
is-
sad if I go to the zoo and a monkey is there. Of course, a monkey's gonna be there. That makes me fucking sad because they look sad. They like a bunch. I don't think other animals are as
I
like
liked that video of that monkey that I showed
yeah,
you.
with popping the pimple. And all
Yeah,
that.
he was like, and he was feeding
He
them
looks
like
so happy because he's not in a cage. Son of a bitches.
yeah.
It kills me to see like a fucking gorilla, and you're seeing like a gorilla, and he's just sitting there, and he's not doing anything. It's because he knows he's in a cage. He knows. He's so consciously aware. He is like bound to this area.
Or at least we it's easy for us to like
Look at him.
anthropomorphize that kind of thing.
Yeah, I
like
mean,
us to put our
But we
experience
know
onto
that
them.
they're really conscious. They could fucking do puzzles, and they can fucking pop pimples. That one fucking monkey ripped open that bag of snacks, opened it up, and shared it. Dude, they're conscious to
Well,
more than fucking a lot of other animals. Like a fish, way
sure,
more conscious than
well,
a fish.
I wouldn't say conscious. I would say
contrast.
sapient.
Yeah. Homo sapient. Yeah.
No, just sapient. There's the concept of so a lot of I think a lot of vegans use the term sentient, and I think they use that incorrectly. So it's like the
Meaning
ability to feel
sapient.
something. I don't think that's something that we should like inherently value. I think the more thing that we should something better that we should value is sapience, which is the ability to reason and like understand.
Yeah, definitely. And they definitely, I fucking know they do. So, look, god damn, they just look so fucking depressed.
Yeah,
Just sitting there, and they just sit there, and they look away a lot of the times. They don't even look at the people because they're like, man, fuck y'all. It's just so sad.
yeah.
Let set the monkeys free.
Free the monkeys, Planet of the Apes. Let them eat the landlords. Nobody's allowed to be a billionaire anymore, otherwise monkeys get to eat you to death.
That's how we'll end the podcast. We're gonna let the monkeys go.
Free
Free
the monkeys.
primates. Free the primates.
Yes. Oh yeah, and the squirrels.
What?
Those bitches are smart too, dude. I don't even want to hear it.
Hey, thanks for watching episode 24. If you made it this far, that means
No,
you're
raccoons.
raccoons.
Yeah, raccoons are smarter than squirrels. No, fuck the squirrels. Fuck the squirrels. Free the raccoons. And things that look like raccoons and red pandas.
Their hands are so cute.
Yeah, they are. I like when they grab things.
I think,
And otters.
I think the outro music is playing. It wasn't even so long.